Herzlich willkommen zum dritten Teil unserer Serie hier bei Turbokraft in Phoenix, Amerika. Wir haben noch Fragen bezüglich Kolben, Pleuel, Köpfe, Bearbeitung, Coatings, irgendwelche Lager und wir wollen uns noch den Kabelbaum angucken. Also viel Spaß dabei und los geht's.
And then
Okay.
what will you be using for things like the Auspuff system?
The header?
Yeah.
We don't know yet. So we thought about to reuse the stock one.
Use the original.
Yeah.
Well, you need a really good heating system, right?
We thought about to just throw it away, but for TOV we have to do it because of when it rains. You have to have a heater to dry the windscreens. Maybe we will add an electric one.
They have heated windscreens from England for like 265 pounds.
Okay.
Incredibly inexpensive. So thank goodness that the pound is like not worth anything right now. You buy them at discount.
Okay.
But
okay.
what is the price for this one? With the complete with the other side?
Yeah, so this is a system we've started making. And then this one we made with no wastegates because this is going to be a twin scroll, and this is normally about 3,800. And then that's going to have a Garrett GT, that's a GTX second generation 35R.
Is this included?
Funny.
And then this is normally for the CIS, but we make versions for, you can see this one, they practiced anodizing. Apparently it was someone's first day on the job and they ruined it. So now it's just for test fitment. But yeah, these will support all the power you could ask for.
And you use CSF cores, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
we've had a good relationship with him for several years, and they work really well.
Okay, spark plugs and coils. These are just
Denso.
average Denso from
Denso,
any
not-
car or...
No, the biggest problem with Denso is they make about 50 variations on this.
Okay.
So they have not been helpful on sharing the dimensions, so we ordered in about 15 and we tried different ones that would actually fit, like the diameter and the length and the seal fits the valve cover. This is the one we finally came up with. It also has an angle so the connector clears the valve cover. Some people ask, why aren't we using Porsche coils? Why aren't we using at least a German one like Audi, Volkswagen? Those coils fail all the time in stock applications. They're changed out all the time. I know workshops that stay in business just from the money they make on changing coils. These are used on millions of Toyotas. I finally changed mine at 130,000 miles just out of precaution. They just go and they go. And the best of all is we saw somebody with a 2.4 liter Toyota running more than 3 bar of boost and the ignition never blew out.
Okay.
And it's okay, so where have you hidden your CDI ignition? He's like, what is a CDI? I don't know what that is. He had original Denso Toyota coils. So
Okay,
they never
so-
failed. So it's okay. That you convinced me. We'll try them on our motors, and we've made past 800 horsepower. They just work.
Okay.
They,
Okay.
they don't fail. They're reliable.
That's proof of concept.
Why change from something that's so
Yes.
reliable?
Yes. Okay. And plugs.
Plugs, these are
just
also-
NGKs.
Yep. We also use Denso a lot. So the two, in my mind, are basically interchangeable: IK24 or BKR8 EIX.
That's the whole EFI kit, right? It's the rail, the spacers, the harness. It's harness is optional, or I mean, it totally makes sense to take the harness, but it's part of the kit.
Yeah. So if you said, okay, we are going to use that computer, then what we normally do, like these are some. I've got 2 more in my office. These are all ones we just finished. We're going to ship them out, but we have loaded a startup program in there. So it's programmed for 60-2, it's programmed for these injectors, it's programmed for these sensors. It is not a finished tune, but once you set that, what Motec calls CRIP, your crank reference index position, that's, you're saying this is where that timing mark is relative to real top dead center. So once you program that in there with the timing light, you go, okay, now it's correct. Turn your fuel pumps on, car starts right up. So that saves you days of work. So we test that harness here, we plug it in, we check everything that we can check without having on a running engine. And that way when we ship it to somebody, he's got very few hours to put it in, get the car running, get it to tuning.
Yes.
He's just going to be looking for
efficient.
leaks, problems with the engine, nope. Go
Yes,
tune it.
and I don't want to make this on my own.
Yeah.
So that's
but that's the
not
thing.
3 days, it's more like 30.
Well, but that's some things that some people say, well, my guy wants to use Haltech, he wants to use Haltech's flying lead harness. Good. It's better that if he's the one doing all of that, he'll assign, this channel does this channel does that. He'll have all that information that's going to be necessary for successful tuning. So when people are going to use a different brand computer, I'll usually say, get the harness from whoever you get that computer from.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And then there are many smaller machine parts, like all those connectors for the throttle body and all those plugs and screws. So that's basically the EFI kit, right?
Yeah. So we have the injector blocks, which come with the rails and the gaskets and all that to finish that, plus the block offs for the intake manifold. You have the sensor for the throttle body. You have manifold pressure sensor. We have, for sequential operation, both flywheel and camshaft pickup. So that's all triggered.
All you need.
Cylinder head temperature.
Yeah.
And then air temperature. That's really it. Oh, and lambda.
Okay.
So you will be welding in a port for the lambda after the turbocharger.
Yes, that's also some interesting thing for a good running engine to have lambda.
Absolutely.
I think we can make this engine because we're in any kind of emission standards. I'm pretty sure we can make this like Euro 2 or 3
Very much
after
so.
this conversion.
Oh yeah.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, we've done with really big cams and things like that, and it will blow as clean as like a Toyota Corolla.
The sad thing is, with the conversion, I won't get the historic license plates. Yeah, we will try. Okay, so we just got some more questions. Let's talk about turbos. So you recommend the GTX or G35s, or?
We like the Garrett ball bearing turbo. So I've obviously been using the original K series turbos, but these cars are not water cooled. So
exactly. Yeah.
These turbos take a lot of abuse, and you can't expect them to last 10 years. They just don't. Unless your car is all original. The minute you start driving them hard, the turbos don't last as long. They just get too hot. So the Garretts have been far more reliable, and they're not difficult to adapt.
Okay.
So if someone, though, as you say, if they're trying to keep it historic, let's pretend you weren't doing EFI, but you still want to upgrade the turbo. This is an original turbocharger that we have modified internally, so it looks completely original, but that turbo makes almost 30 more horsepower.
Okay.
So it has a new compressor, a new turbine wheel.
This is the stock ones, because you can. That's the 3LD, right?
Yes. People call them K26s, but they're really 3LDZs.
Yes.
And everything about that is obsolete. Borg Warner doesn't support it at all.
Yes.
But we've worked with a company to manufacture new turbine wheels, manufacture new billet compressor wheels, have the bearings made to the correct tolerances.
We have a very specialized company close to us. Now you have to pixel this to pixel peep this because they are the official supplier for all, and they do the there's the supplier for all the new ones. So they're, I mean, like really deep into turbos, and I talked to him about what kind of turbo we should use because they make aftermarket tuning turbos, and he said, yeah, you can go with the Garrett, but for this special product, to keep it like a touch of historic, he has an idea of using that. There's a version coming after this, right?
K27.
Yes, K27. When this dies, you can't buy this new.
Correct.
Because they're out of life. So he recommended to use a K27 and change the internals. Yeah. So we do some stuff inside there, and then
we've been doing the same thing for many years, especially because 2 years ago the K27 was not available. You couldn't buy them. There were none at the factory. So same thing, we have new turbine wheels made for them. They're much smaller center hub, so that you have much more blade area. So now it's being driven with more energy, less back pressure. It means it comes on earlier. The torque at 3,000 RPM is much better. So yeah, all of a sudden the car is far more drivable. So
you would say that's also a good
that'd be a good start. Yes.
Okay.
Ideally, then yes, the K27 7200, 7200.
Okay.
Similar to what they fit on the 1991 through 94 964 turbos.
Okay. Yeah.
But then again, you take that, throw out everything inside of it,
and put it all new, and then do some special things on it. What about cams? So should we use the stock ones, or what do you recommend?
If you have the possibility to change them. The stock cams are very, very mild. So like the timing on them is 0.8 to 1.0. Very small. That's measuring the lifted overlap. You look at a non-turbo, like a SC or a Carrera, and they start at 1.25. Schreck has got some that are like 1.8, and then some that are more like 2.1.
Okay.
So really, I don't know his current catalog, but he used to list 3 available. The top one is more like a race cam. The middle one is a little bit of aggressive at idle, a lot of fun. good torque. But if you said, nah, I'm only looking for like 450 PS, his first cam is going to be a big improvement over original.
I mean, there's no need to daily it. I mean, I won't drive it very often, so...
The stock cam is so mild that everything is an improvement above.
Okay. Okay, is there a big difference in price between the regular and the middle one?
No,
bitte, film kurz raus, ja, bitte, zeig das ganz kurz. Welcome to America.
I did walk in next door. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that's over there for dyno tuning. So yeah, I don't think there's any difference in the price of them because ultimately you're starting with a fresh billet and cutting it. But yeah, you need a turbo one. It will have a drive on the end of the 1 through 3 cam for the scavenge pump system.
So,
what do you think about the springs, the rough springs?
Yes.
What is
So there's about 5 things that we do on all of the engines. The rod bolts are small; they're 9mm. So I don't know if you're planning on putting new connecting rods in, but if you're going to use the original,
that's also a question.
If you're going to use the original,
do you have any of this stuff in?
Yeah.
Let's go back there.
I'll show you.
I mean, it's easier to show the parts. Timon, können wir bitte ganz kurz wertschätzen, wie dieses Lager aussieht hier? Guck dir das bitte an.
Dazu vielleicht ganz kurz erzählt, wir haben über das Wastegate gesprochen im letzten Video. Das sind die Federn, die in dem Wastegate sitzen. Genau das sind die Federn.
Ah ja, alles klar.
Also
diese Feder hier.
Genau, diese Feder. Da kannst du dich draufstellen. Ja,
und die bricht dir auch den Kiefer. Chris, what is this here? I'm sorry that I'm just...
Oh, these are for the fuel injectors. So, injector dynamics, again, these are all made by Bosch Motorsport. You see, genuine Bosch. That's the adapter. So the injector is a short, but that's the adapter for the top. And then we had them make them all for us with the cutout for the original injector clip because the way our fuel rails are designed.
You machine them here or you order them?
No, his company is actually here in the valley. So I said, well, can you just make us a few hundred of those? Yeah, okay.
Great, okay, great. So, and we just talked about the spring for the
wastegate.
For the wastegate. So wastegate is also a question.
Well, we can cover all that, and then and then we're like all the parts original from the engine. We just send them all out, get them all remanufactured.
So that's so beautiful. Isn't it? So. Hast du das gesehen? Schrauben. Alles, was wir bräuchten gerade, ne?
Haben wir doch schon.
Ja.
Ja, alles schon bestellt.
Geh's bitte an. Alles da. Alles hier in so schönen. Das ist so mag der Deutsche das.
Pieces to send back and fix and make right.
Wahnsinn. Und hier stehen noch ein paar Kurbelwellen. Ach, 39 Kurbelwellen, die auch die man so gut findet.
39, 993, 964.
Kurbelwelle, da so eine GT3 Kurbelwelle.
Ja.
Macht man das in dem 39 Motor?
Yeah, they're wonderful. I have one right there for
just laying around here.
Yeah, I just got it in.
In the mail.
Ja.
Da komme ich auch andauernd per Post.
GT3 Ölpumpe. Aber eine Ölpumpe braucht man nicht für eine Straße.
Okay.
Yes, it's larger, but you don't need the extra pressure and you don't need the extra scavenging because you're not running R compound race tires. You know, if you're running a Trofeo R tire or a Pilot Sport Cup 2 tire, like the GT3 RSR or GT3 R 4-liter, any of those, fine. That car has such high G-forces, you want all the oil pickup you can. For our cars, it's unnecessary. If your pump was dead and you can get one of these at a good price, okay, but you also must machine the inside of the engine.
I just wanted to ask if you can just plug and play install them, but no.
Not quite.
And the crank?
It's almost a plug and play. So we have machined these and modified them to put original pulleys on there. We modify the pulley, modify the crank, and it can look completely original. But normally the end of the crank is longer, like a 993. So all of a sudden it's like, I can't use my pulley. It sticks out too far, and the pulley sits inside of a housing. With a pulley made for it, can I still get a belt on it? So some things become difficult to service if you don't prepare the parts right.
Still, I mean, this is what built here? Easily like 40 years in between, right?
Yes.
So, and it still fits. It works.
Yes.
So that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's Porsche.
Well, I mean, that was Porsche. When the 996 turbo was coming out, they went right back to the architecture that has worked for 40 years and won Le Mans and won Daytona and won every other race on the planet. Why change?
That's nice. What do we got here?
What we have here is some of the basic things that we recommend doing to every engine. So when they went from the 3 liter to the 3.2, 3.3, they made the bearing larger, which means they had to make the bolts smaller. So instead of being 10 millimeter, they're 9 millimeter. So for high RPM, people don't favor these rods. In general though, we have seen these rods stretch. It's hard to miss a shift with a 4-speed. It's easier obviously with a 5-speed, but still we've had people be excited and they think they're going from 3rd to 4th, they pull it to 2nd, 8,000 RPM. You want to have good valve springs and good bolts too.
Is there a chance that the engine will do that? Or, I mean, like on modern cars, you kill the engine?
One moment. Well, you can't.
If you're quick enough in your action.
Correct. So if you give yourself parts that will allow it to mechanically do that and not fail, you might push the clutch back in and save the engine. There's no electronics that will save you from a mechanical over rev. That's a physical thing happening. But if, say, it only gets to 7,500, that's beyond what the original valve springs will tolerate, and you will have valves hit the pistons, bend that valve, break a rocker, possibly lock up things on that side of the engine, which now locks up things on the other side of the engine. You just bent all the valves, dented all the pistons. Bad. So
yeah, really bad. Really bad. I just had it in my mind like a movie. So
yeah, and we see this happen a couple of times every year.
Okay.
So stronger rod bolts is really important. These rods are incredibly strong.
So you would recommend to use them?
Unless you want a lightweight connecting rod, but for a turbo, you're not really looking to save a lot of weight. There's an old saying among builders that mass will save your ass. Having a lot of weight and things moving smoothly is a good thing on a high torque motor. So these will work just fine for you. Just replace the rod bolts, new bushings, which they'll size on the new piston pins.
But everything's stock.
Stock. These are almost indestructible. This is only 127 millimeters. You're not going to bend that. If you bent this, other terrible things happen to make that happen. Bigger problems. Another thing is head studs. So Porsche went through many variations on this. This is what they used throughout the 1980s on the turbos. They called it a Delavar. It's basically like an epoxy paint, but if you get a chip in it, they get corrosion and these things break, and they're under a lot of tension. There have been people with the car parked and you're pang! Well, what was that? Well, that was a stud breaking. They finally got it right on the 993 turbo, just in time to stop building these motors. So, you know, at the very end, they got it right. So these studs are good, or we also use ARP. So we've had no problems ever with ARP fasteners, they just work.
And das ist halt das, was ich auch gesagt hatte. Also our engine has this Delavar. And no, this one, the Delavar.
So these are good.
Yes, but do you want to need it tutor or rebuild it?
Do we have to make new ones?
More like look for damage to it. So again, if you see any corrosion starting or damage to the finish on it,
nothing.
If they look like new,
that's the purple color of it.
Das heißt, unser Motor ist aus einem älteren Baujahr oder wie? Also
nee, da wurde irgendwas mal dran gemacht. Also irgendjemand hat die umgebaut. Weil das ist die Stock und also vielleicht auch nochmal kurz erzählt. Das sind serienmäßige Bolzen, die in der Regel in der Zeit gebrochen sind. Und zwar in den meisten Fällen immer die unteren. Wegen Spritzwasser. Du fährst durch Regen, Spritzwasser, Korrosion und dann springen als erstes die unteren Bolzen. So, und da haben wir dann gesagt, okay, pass auf, wir schmeißen die alle raus und nehmen halt Delavar-Bolzen, die halt auch...
Das ist aber Zubehör.
Das ist Zubehör? Okay. Ja, beziehungsweise später halt OE gewesen, aber erst ab 99?
96 mit 903.
Ja, genau.
Und die Turbo und RS.
Die kosten so 35 bis... Also ich glaube zwischen 35 und 49 Euro pro Stück. Das Stück.
Stück. So, und 50 Euro pro Stück. Ja. Die ARP sind ungefähr $740 insgesamt.
That's less.
Ja, aber wir gucken uns doch mal unsere ganz genau an und dann entscheiden wir, ob wir die drin lassen oder nicht.
Okay. So this is a point where different air-cooled engine builders will argue whose is better, ARP, Porsche's last generation. It comes down to personal preference. They're both good. Everything is better than this. This is throwaway. We just keep them as examples or for mock-up.
Auch da zum Beispiel selbst Leute, die ein Auto restaurieren, also große Restaurationswerkstätten, die wirklich aufs kleinste Detail gehen, nehmen nicht mehr diese Schrauben. Weil du siehst sie nicht, es ist egal.
Und dann nehmen wir hier die ARP.
Genau.
Schrauben. Yeah, and you can always see them right here. Okay.
Okay. So that's the only thing we have to change.
Yeah. And then we do things like piston coatings that reduce the friction, but the new Mahle Motorsport, so the 98 millimeter, they already have like Rafale and something else on the piston to hold oil. So we do that to the bearings as well. We do it to the pistons, everything to fight friction. And again, life happens. You meant to go and properly put the things into winter your car, but then your kid gets sick and something else happens and you forget, and then shit, I didn't get my car ready for winter and it sat for 5 months. We like to have everything, so it is very low maintenance. You know, oil is on all the bearings, it's ready to go. So the only thing that doesn't save you there is the fuel system. So these are heads that have been all done on a 5-axis mill, ported, polished, but I wanted to show you the valve springs. So again, really good valve springs, really good retainers. The retainers do crack over time. So these are a throwaway. Every rebuild, new ones.
Okay.
Valve springs, we always put in ones that we know that, like the 3-liter class racers, people doing the 911 ST Cup, they run their motors to 8,000, 8,200, 8,400. So again, if you start to miss a shift, oh my God, it's at 7,600. At least the valve spring will save the valve from floating and hitting the piston.
Okay. And the retainers are aftermarket or?
Ja, die sind aus Titan.
Okay. Klingt auch schon wieder teuer. Aber
Like,
welche
this is all ASCO. So ASCO has been doing stuff for more than 30 years, professional and semi-professional racing. They figured out all the harmonics on the valve springs a long time ago, so it's a very proven package. The whole setup is like $850.
That's okay.
Springs and retainers.
Compared to...
When you add up all the Porsche stuff, you're like, wait a second, I'm already at 480.
Yes.
And it's not that good.
Compared to bearing 8, we have to do our case got cleaned, and the surface got machined, and everything is, our crankshaft was like, it was in perfect shape, so it was in original spec, and just the bearings were, and the, how you say,
bearings were stock,
die Gasse war,
and the outside plus
Signs?
no 0,25.
Nur 25.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Die sind teuer. So 1,200 Euro?
700 plus bearing 8.
Bearing 8 is
8 is 500.
Do you want one?
Yeah.
I have one that I'll probably never use.
Stock without plus 0.
50% chance that you'll change your exhaust valve.
Okay, because the stock one is, or the original one is damaged, or?
Porsche uses a sodium-filled exhaust valve, so the stem has sodium inside to transfer heat into the guide and into the head. But they're also case hardened, so only the outside is hard, which means when you go to remanufacture it and you go to cut it, you can only just kiss that valve so little bit on the cutter, and if it doesn't clean up, infection.
Okay.
If you cut too deeply, you go right through the case hardening of the valve, and then that valve is soft, and that's the end of the valve.
Okay.
So we found out the hard way. So it's like, if you can't kiss it to clean it up, throw it away and put new valves.
What do you think about the new original valves? It's okay for this engine and this.
The original valves, there should be no problem. Direct from Porsche, they should be just fine.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, so you don't do any special things.
I've heard from a colleague in Hamburg. He says, the guides only from Porsche, that almost everybody's guides, whoever's making them, that's being circulated throughout Germany, is like, they're terrible. Like within hundreds or a few thousand kilometers, the guides are all worn out. He's like, scheiße. I don't know if you had the same experience in Mittelmotor, or?
Yes, but we have in few years it's 2 times so.
Oh, that's definitely.
It's not
like
so
here we know the
problem.
brands to stay away from. That it's like they're the cheapest, but you just don't want to use them.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Cheap is not good.
Well, but there's another company I know who makes the valves for quite inexpensive, but their valves are their guides are very hard and they last a very long time.
We have a specialist for Porsche heads in Bochum, next to our hometown, and who is a genius, good Porsche head.
Good.
I give him, and he said, okay, we do like this, and this, and everything's fine.
Yeah, and then this you'll just plug that hole in.
Yeah, yes, that's what I think. What you can snug in the butt. Yeah, it's open and
We're going to try knock up here and see how it works. We did this years ago, but the software wasn't as good, and now the computers are just so much more advanced.
Is it a problem if this come in vibrations? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
That never fails.
Okay.
And then that cylinder head temperature sensor just goes right in here in the fins, and as opposed to having to machine the head, which is a much more complicated thing to do, and we've tracked the both of them, and the most important is that they track at the same time. You're really using that for cold start and the warm-up cycle. If you were to read oil, you know, as that thermostat opens, you have what? How many liters of oil?
8, 9?
At least.
So complete?
At the end of the complete,
like
15,
12
15.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of oil to get warm. So it would take like 25 or 30 minutes of driving to get everything warm. Like, my God, it's still in cold start mode, and I'm burning so much fuel, and it smells rich. So when you come off the head, within a few minutes, they're warmed up.
So no different valves, or so stock valves.
Stock valves, new springs.
New springs,
like
retainers,
like a C or Carrera springs.
These
or is it that's a 3-liter head?
3.3 turbo.
That's 3.3 turbo? Yeah, okay, without bolts. Okay.
Yeah, we welded it all up because we're doing something different on this one.
Okay, so that was very interesting for us because I was asked if we have to change the rods. Then with cylinders, we don't know yet. Pistons, you go with cylinders. Would you recommend to go with Mahle cylinders, and is it a must-have? Because our cylinders and the pistons, they're pretty good. So there's, I mean, on one skirt there's like a scratch.
If he's the motor builder, it's his call on that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 3.3, but they are definitely...
It can take the power? I mean...
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, we don't do 1,000 horsepower, so...
You're not being greedy with the boost. So it's just not like building an Audi or something with an iron block and 2 bar.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. That's
1 bar, 1.1, 1.2.
Yeah.
So on the K series turbos, it's kind of linear gain from 1 bar to 1.1, 1.2. Garrett, that's right about the time the wheels become efficient. So the minute you get a taste of 1.1 bar, you're like, oh yeah, I want 1 bar because that's so much better than 1. We normally tune them on what would be your 95 gasoline for about 1.2 bar, and they last just fine. They go for years.
Okay, so das sollte dann eine Option sein. Das heißt, wir müssen das nicht machen.
Nein, wir beschichten.
Ja.
Wir haben unsere Option, die Leute beschichten zu lassen. Das würde ich schon, also wenn wir das machen, dann
There's a special guy in Germany, a one-man company, and he does like, I don't know, rocket science in coating, top coating and skirt coatings and stuff like that. So that could be an option.
Cool. We do that when we do like alcohol burn cars. So we coat the entire combustion chamber and the valves and the exhaust port. But for what you're doing, no, not necessary.
And we have the 102 octane fuel, so no need for alcohol or ethanol or whatever. So I guess that's enough. Right now, I think.
Yeah, not right now.
We got it
for now.
So for now, we got it. Ich sage an der Stelle Tschüss, Chris. Thanks a lot for having us, sharing all those tons of information. I think we will stay in contact. Und ich sage euch vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen. Ich hoffe, ihr hattet Spaß. Und wir sehen uns dann im nächsten Teil des Videos, wenn wir den Motor zusammenbauen. Bis dahin.